So if you would, go ahead and turn to Luke chapter 8. Find that. Matthew, Mark, Luke. And I'm going to talk to us today about Emmanuel. It's a word that literally means with us, God. And it's a verb and a noun put together, and the word order matters. God wants us to know, first of all, he's with us. And El is the Hebrew name for the mighty God who causes things to happen. And so with us is the mighty God who causes things to happen. This story that we're going to read is in 3 of the 4 Gospels. We're going to read 2 of them today. And so I'm going to start in Luke chapter 8, verse 22, if you'd follow with me. Now, on one of those days, Jesus and his disciples got into a boat, and he said to them, let's go over to the other side of the lake. So they launched out. But as they were sailing along, he fell asleep, and a fierce gale of wind descended on the lake, and they began to be swamped and to be in danger. They came to Jesus and woke him up, saying, Master, we're perishing. Well, he got up and rebuked the wind and the surging waves, and they stopped, and it became calm. And get what he says to them. He didn't say, thanks for waking me up. He asked them a question. Where's your faith? Where is your faith? They were fearful and amazed, saying to one another, who is this that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him? Now find chapter 4 in Mark. We're going to read the same story. Find verse 35. On that day when evening came, he said to them, let's go over to the other side. Leaving the crowd, they took him along with them in the boat, just as he was, and the other boats were with him. And there arose a fierce gale of wind, and the waves were breaking over the boat so much that the boat was filling up. Jesus himself was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him up, and they said to him, Teacher, don't you care that we're perishing? And that's the part of this story I want you to get that comes out, the same event. And he got up and he rebuked the wind, and he said to the sea, hush, be still. The wind died down, and it became perfectly calm. And he said to them, why are you so afraid? Why is it that you have no faith? They became very much afraid and said to one another, who is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? Back in Roman times, temples were made to be real spectacles. They used what we would call architects and engineers to create illusions of smoke and sound and fire coming out of the mouth of serpents and all kinds of things with fluid dynamics. And they tricked people. People would travel to a city to see a temple that had been built to create those kind of illusions. It reminds me of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom or something like that, you know. That was way overdone. But back then, they had the ability to create those illusions for people. People were wanting to see signs and miracles and be entertained and be dazzled by what seemed to be real. And some people probably believed it and some didn't, but people would travel to see that. And this is a miracle. This is a bona fide sign and a miracle that we see from Jesus today. They went across the Sea of Galilee, which is also called Lake Tiberias, or the Sea of Tiberias. It's called Lake Kinneret or Kinneret. And Kinneret is a word that means an instrument that looks like a violin because that's the way the lake is shaped. It's 13 miles long by about 7 miles wide, 64 square miles of water. And the geography of that place makes it a wind tunnel. Did y'all go out on the lake on a tour when you were there? Lo and behold, we were on the lake for about 10 minutes and it became the ocean. That's why they call it the Sea of Galilee, because whitecaps start just like you would see in the ocean. And we had to head on back to the dock that we came from. I know in my boat, I've got a 24-foot center console, and I won't take it out on the lake in certain conditions. I sure won't take it out in the ocean unless I check with Predict Wind first. And I get what the seas are going to be like, what the wind speed's going to be like, and that kind of thing. And he was with these guys who grew up on the lake. Jesus was with these fishermen. They grew up on this lake, learning how to fish and navigate a boat and pay attention to the weather and see the signs as little boys. So as men, they knew all about this lake, where to go, where not to go, when you don't go out, when you do go out. Even today, a power boat, so they would call it over there. In certain conditions, you can't go out. It's just too dangerous. It's too choppy. And so this is the situation that they were in. It took about 2 hours to sail across the Sea of Galilee in a boat back then that these guys were in. They were in a storm. And I want to tell you that Jesus is with you in the storms of life. This happened in the fall of AD 29. A friend tells me that which is personal is most universal. And you guys know me, a lot of you do, and I'm a very private person. I rarely share much of anything about me. And but today I'm going to change gears. I want to share a little bit about a storm I've been in. And this started in March-ish of last year. On Sundays, I go to the gym. I started a new routine because a year ago I tore this bicep tendon and tore my bicep loose from my elbow. And I decided after doctor's advice not to get the surgery. He said, you'll tear it again. I said, that's all I wanted to hear. You wouldn't do it, I'm not going to do it. He said, but you're going to have to keep up with it. So I go literally, and I'm militant about this every Sunday, and I'm doing dumbbell, I'm doing all kinds of stuff with my arm and my shoulder and my chest so I don't lose that. So in March-ish, back in the spring, I go after Sunday, and I can't keep my eyes open. I sat down in a chair in the gym and literally fell asleep. I laid down on the floor and fell asleep for about 45 minutes. The owner of the gym was looking at me, watching me, and noticed that my ears were turning purple. And she called a doctor that we have worked with some rehab. He broke his neck in a bicycle accident, so we've been doing some rehab with him to be able to intubate people again and actually use that part of his body. And so the owner called him, and Dr. Huff said, somebody needs to get him to the emergency room right away. And so they woke me up, and Laurie and Meredith are in the airplane over the Atlantic somewhere, coming back from France. They have no idea what's going on. And I had already made an appointment for the following Tuesday because I thought it was my sinuses that was starting to mess with me, because it seems like the older I get, it just gets worse every year, at certain seasons of the year. And so I was going to go get checked out. And I said, I've got an appointment Tuesday. And he said, you might not be here till on Tuesday. If your ears are turning purple, you need to get to the emergency room. And my excuse to one other person in the gym who's a retired pharmacist from Grady Hospital, his name's Terry too. I said, I got to go home and feed my dogs. My wife and my daughter are not here. I got to take care of my dogs. I'll be okay. I'll go Tuesday. And he gave me one of those looks like you've gotten from your parents before. If you don't do what I'm telling you, I'm going to whip your fanny. And I said, okay, I'll go. But I'm going to go feed my dogs first, okay? And they said, you need to take an ambulance? And nope, I'm going to drive myself. So I did. I drove myself up to Paulding Emergency Room. And I called him on the way. I called Jared on the way just to tell him what was going on. And I said, but do not come up here, all right? I'm good. I'm fine. They'll probably just give me a steroid shot or something like that. Well, I've been there about 5 minutes. He comes walking through the door. They take me back and start hooking me up to all kinds of stuff. And I've got AFib. And some of y'all have had that. I'd heard of it. I hadn't really paid much attention to it. Didn't really know what it was until I got to stay in the hospital for 4 days. And so they got me kind of straightened out and sent me home, and then made an appointment for a heart cath. Some of y'all have done that. Nothing going on inside as far as blockages. Then they made an appointment for me to meet with an electrocardiologist. They call themselves the electricians in the group. And so we started talking about an ablation. Some people haven't had an ablation, right? And so it sounded pretty doggone scary to me because and here's the thing with me. I've had a heart murmur since birth. I've always had to get checked out in high school and especially in college to play football. I had to have, and it's not a new thing. Some guys wear these, a sternum pad. It laced into my shoulder pads and it hung down low so that when my arms went up or out and my shoulder pads went up, I still had coverage right there. Because you get hit pretty hard, especially in college. They pulled me out of the physical line at Tech, and they started checking me out. I said, son, do you have a heart murmur? I said, yes, sir. Listen. Hold your breath, call, we'll do whatever. I said, okay, you're good. Get back in line. And so I was approved to play. So it's always been an issue, and that's part of what's going on with this AFib. And so I've spent more time in doctor's offices since March than I've spent my entire life. I've never taken medicine for anything like some of y'all. I got a whole handful of stuff I take every day right now. And y'all see me sometimes putting Band-Aids on my hands because the blood thinner. I scratch my finger and it just goes and starts bleeding like crazy. So it's just it's a life changer in a lot of ways. So after that 4-day stay in the hospital after the heart cath, and I was supposed to go home that afternoon, they just said, nah, you can't go home. Your heart's really out of rhythm. So they got me straightened out. Went to see the electrocardiologist. I'm going to call him Dr. K, and he's been awesome, and started talking to me about an ablation. Go back to the hospital, and they go up through your artery into your heart, and they burn around your valves. And it creates scar tissue so that the electrical signals, when they travel through your heart muscle, will stop. The signals won't go through scar tissue. Remember when we talked about Fit to Live? Our heart magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than our brain. Y'all remember that? And so what they're doing is slowing that down and stopping all of that to keep my valves from getting all out of whack. Well, I got to stay in the hospital another 4 days. I was supposed to go home that afternoon. Said, nah, you're not ready to go yet. And so they started putting IVs in me, and I literally had 5 in this arm and 4 in that arm with a drug called amiodarone, which they say is very toxic. It damaged my eyesight, my liver, and some other stuff. So you can't stay on it very long. But they call it a dirty drug, an electrical drug. I asked the nurse practitioner what that meant. She goes, I don't know. But we just know it works. But you can't stay on it long. And so they were trying to get 2 months of that drug into me in just about 2 or 3 days. So I had all these IVs going in me, and my veins started collapsing. Y'all ever had that happen before? And the fluid started going into my muscle tissue, and my arm started swelling up. And I've got a very high pain tolerance. I could not take that. And I called him. I said, y'all got to do something here. Find some other vein. I don't care what you do. This has got to come out of me. And so after 4 days of that, I got to go home again. Well, the electrocardiology group sent me to what's called structural heart. They said, yeah, we see some things in your echocardiogram that they might want to take a look at. So all this started in March. In August, I did the ablation. I go to see structural heart in August, and I walk in. And all these people, by the way, have been super nice. Doctors, nurses, everybody been great. These guys start immediately drawing what open heart surgery looks like on a whiteboard. Okay. And start talking to me about open heart surgery and what valve replacement looks like and all that kind of stuff. So this was in August. Fast forward to in the fall, I had a follow-up visit with the structural heart group that got canceled because the doctor had to go out of town. That appointment got moved back to December. And so I went back a few weeks ago and had my appointment with them, and they said, you need open heart surgery. And they started telling me what that was all about. We're going to cut your sternum open. Obviously, everybody knows that. And we're going to go in and put you on a heart-lung machine. Because I asked them, I said, how do y'all keep me alive while y'all are doing this? They said, there's a thing called a heart-lung machine, and we take blood out of another part of your heart, and we oxygenate it and make sure your organs are working and your brain's working while we have your heart, and we're working on the inside of that. We're going to give you a new valve, and your aorta's got to come out, some of it. We've got to put a fake aorta in there. So I'm calm. I'm just sitting there, okay, all right. And they said, when would you like to do this? I said, what's the earliest date? They said, December 22nd. And I said, yes, schedule me. And I went, no. I'll mess everybody's Christmas up. And well, let's get through Christmas. When's the next one you got? December the 30th. And I said, my deductible's already met. Let's do this, all right? Let's get this done, for real. And so we're going to do it. Let's do it. And so he said, here's what it's going to look like when we close you up. The surgery will take about 2.5 hours. And we close you up. And he said, we're going to put a plastic plate behind your sternum and put 4 titanium screws on each side so you won't tear your sternum up. You're muscular and you're strong, and we don't want you messing anything up and getting in trouble there. And I asked him, I said, what's the quickest anybody's ever walked out of the hospital after you've done that? He said 3 days. I said, good, that gives me something to shoot for, right? So not one that's going to sit around. He said, you seem to me like a guy who kind of pushes through stuff. I said, yeah, pretty much. So I said, if that's truly necessary, let's get this done. Let's go ahead and do it. The most irritating part of the thought of this whole thing is that I can't drive for 4 to 6 weeks. That ain't going to happen. So I'm going to have to call some of y'all and come drive me around in your back seat so I can get places. That is not going to happen, right? So this week I have another follow-up appointment on Tuesday, December 10th, with Dr. K, the electrician of the bunch, the electrical guy. And so he comes into the room and he's asking me questions and he's typing and looking at my chart and all that stuff. And he said, how you feeling? I said, I feel great. I said, I'm as strong as a bull. I'm as strong as I've ever been. I'm breathing. I can breathe through my nose now. I don't know why that happened, but hear that? Do you ever hear me do that? You never hear me do that. So I said, I feel great. And he's making notes and he says, well, yeah, things are going good. Yeah, things are going good. I said, Dr. K, you may or may not know I'm scheduled for open heart surgery on the 30th. And y'all have done this, right? You've been in the room and they're typing. They got the computer there. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, I'm scheduled for open heart surgery. He went, no. He said, your numbers are not that bad. And so we started talking through that. And he said, no, he said, you're too young, you're too healthy. They've told me more than once, you're the poster child for being in shape for your age. And for 4 decades on purpose, I've tried to make that happen with exercise and food. And I stopped eating M&Ms a couple of years ago and stuff like that. And so it's been a concerted effort. He goes, he says, I think we just need to watch you. Your numbers are not that bad. He said, I want you to have another echocardiogram. And I said, well, how soon can I do it? He said, it might take 2 or 3 weeks, especially now at the holidays. He said, I'm putting in, and then he started typing again, I'm putting in the order right now. And he said, I'm going to put stat. And you know what that means, right? Like now. Let's get this done now. And he kind of wrapped it up to get me out the door. He said, the ladies, when you check out at the front, will schedule this for you. So I went out to the front, super nice ladies again. And she said, yep, I see his order right here. I said, what's the soonest I can do this? She said, we've got one 20 minutes upstairs. Can you do that? I said, yeah, I'll make that happen. I can do that. So I went upstairs to the 3rd floor and they said, yep, we see the order. And the young lady there is super nice. And she had these long fingernails like that. And she was typing. I really wanted to ask her, how do you type with those? Because it was just click, 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 click. But she got it all right, evidently. She said, I've got to contact insurance. And she said, I don't know when they'll get back with me. So I went and sat down. And so I walked back over and said, hey, have you ever heard anything from insurance yet? She goes, no, they haven't responded back yet. And I just politely said, this might be the difference between open heart surgery or not. She went, oh. She said, let me email my supervisor. So she emailed her supervisor on her phone. I went and sat back down. About 5 minutes later, she goes, Mr. Tyrell, my name's Terrell. I get called Tyrell all the time. Mr. Tyrell, can you come over here? You need to sign a few things. She goes, your insurance has been approved. And so you know how you just sign the little pad things. You sign and give initials, sign, give initials is what I did. And she said, you've been approved for the echocardiogram. So literally inside of 20 minutes, I was upstairs with my shirt off, all plugged, and they were doing the thing on me, looking at my heart. And so just super nice. So by the time I got home, I'm pulling into the driveway. I'm walking downstairs to let the dogs out. You have a message in my chart, test result. So listen to this. The left ventricular systolic function is normal with an ejection fraction of 56 to 60%. That's just what it's supposed to be. That's perfect. Can't get any higher than that. The left ventricular diastolic function is normal with some other stuff. I don't know what it means. The left ventricular cavity index to body surface area and gender is normal. There is mild concentric left ventricular hypertrophy present. And I realize I'm breaking HIPAA rules here, okay, but I don't care right now. All right. But that's been the case since I was a kid. There's nothing abnormal about that. It's always been that way. The right ventricular systolic function is normal. The right ventricular cavity size is normal. The aortic valve appears to be fused bicuspid. There is moderate to severe aortic valve stenosis. That's why I had to wear that pad. It's been this way. That's nothing new. There is moderate tricuspid valve regurgitation. I've had doctors let me listen to my own heart through their stethoscope and hear what that sounds like. It's been there since I've been a kid. There is moderate tricuspid valve regurgitation. The estimated PA systolic pressure is 13. milligrams of mercury with a mean pressure of 10 milligrams of mercury. The inferior vena cava demonstrates a normal central venous pressure. So I'm reading this, and Dr. K, he told me, he said, when you get your result, I'm going to call you personally, and let's see what that says. So I'm sitting there on the bottom deck of our house reading this. The phone rings. It's CV Marietta, which is cardiovascular Marietta. Hello, this is Dr. K. I said, I'm reading my results right now. He started laughing. I said, everything I'm reading, doctor, is normal. What's going on here? He said, well, I'm going to personally talk to the other doctors, and I don't think you need open heart. And I said, well, I would appreciate a call back. Kind of a big deal. And I've called his nurse and texted him a couple of times, and I haven't heard back, which tells me maybe he hasn't gotten in touch with the other doctors yet, or his opinion is going to be the prevailing opinion. Hang here with me with this. This is what I wrote to him. Dr. K, you may not have been able to contact Dr. M yet. I'm not saying their name, so they're great guys, brilliant guys. May not have been able to contact him about my open heart surgery. The more I've thought about your response and advice and my echo results, I'm not going to have open heart. You presented a much more acceptable avenue to deal with my heart issue, which has existed from birth. I would like to know more about the TAVR option, which is where they go up and they put a valve in through your artery, and you get to go home the next day. I'd like to know about that option for me when needed. I much prefer your suggestion of watching me in my affected areas of my heart and then taking action. So my point is this. God is with you in your storms. Amen. Yep. And those who know me will tell you, I've not panicked one time. I've not freaked out. I've not been mad at God. And I did not ask this question, don't you care that I got this problem, God? I've known I've had it for my whole life. They wanted to cut my throwing arm when I was 13 years old. I was a pitcher. I was a baseball player. I was a quarterback. The way they did those heart casts back then, they cut your arm and went up this way. They might as well have torn my bicep tendon. I was not happy. And I literally told my parents, that ain't going to happen. I was agitated. And so they called that off at that point in time. Said they're not going to make me not able to throw. So this has always been an issue. So I want to tell you from experience, God is with you. He is with you in your storm. There's some things we learn from these stories. And as I wrap up here, I just want to mention a few of these. I never do this. Y'all come on up. I have got to blow my nose. I never do this. Not in public. I just don't do this. Hang on just a minute. Hang on. Here are some things that we all need to know and learn from these stories about Jesus calming the storm, because we're all going to go through some storms that only he can calm. Now, I'm not saying I'm healed. Y'all heard me. You didn't hear me say that. I've still got some stuff going on that's going to have to get fixed, but I'm not having open heart surgery on the 30th, right? So here's the first thing. God has a fresh word for you every day. Here's what happened. I'm almost positive of it. The structural heart guys were making a decision based on old information, on an old echocardiogram. The new one showed a whole different heart, back to normal. And we need to understand that every single morning, God has a message for you. Not some new revelation, but a reminder that he's with you. Out of Lamentations chapter 3, this I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. And biblical hope is certainty. It's not wishful thinking. The Lord's loving kindness indeed never ceases, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And the word there is hesed, and it means covenant loyalty. God makes a covenant with you and me, and he keeps his covenant. He is loyal to that covenant. Even in times when we're not, he is. And he always has that message for you, new and fresh, every morning. The second thing is this: perceived silence does not mean personal absence. Jesus was in the boat sound asleep. That didn't mean he didn't care or didn't know what was going on. And sometimes we're wondering, where in the world are you, God? Why are you not talking to me? We think he's forgotten and left because all we seem to hear is silence. Silence does not equal absence with him, because Jesus had perfect timing, and he will with you and me too. He's had it with us. Did you catch in my story how those appointments got postponed? And I almost canceled the one on Tuesday with Dr. K. I was like, well, I'm having open heart surgery. Why do I need to go do this? If I had canceled that appointment, I would have not gotten this updated information. And I would be having open heart surgery on the 30th of December. Jesus' timing is perfect, and he arranges the affairs of men and women and boys and girls. Third thing, he most certainly will force the necessity of having faith rather than fear. Did you catch his question to them? Where's your faith? Where's your faith? He's always going to bring that up. And I will say this, I had faith. I still do. I know some stuff's still going to have to happen, but not that. There's a guy that I train early in the mornings that's retired PhD from CDC. He's a chemist, and he worked with human tissue and vaccines and stuff like that. And so I'm starting to tell these people I work with, I'm going to be out for a little bit. I got to have open heart surgery. And he goes, oh, well, get ready for this. When you roll into that operating room, it's going to look like the Home Depot power tool display. Thanks for that. Well, now I get to tell him I'm not doing that. No power tool display. I know. How about that? It's kind of like your text message to me. Don't Google stuff. Don't listen. Yeah, don't Google. No. So, but we can be assured when we're in a storm, he's going to force the issue of faith. That's what it's all about. Do you believe me or not? They were like, don't you care? Yeah, he cares. Absolutely, he cares. Here's the fourth thing. Pessimism is dangerous. It's deadly because it makes us think about what we lack, and what we lack becomes more important than what God promises to provide. Storms will make a pessimist out of you. Don't let that happen. Here's the fifth thing. Our enemy traffics in fear of the unknown. There is nothing unknown to Emmanuel. Nothing. His motivation toward us is compassion. He cares deeply and eternally for you and for me. He has dominion over illness, tragedy, chaos, death. He has dominion over everything. Those are just skirmishes on earth. He wields everlasting power over life and death, over everything, and he governs the affairs of men and women and boys and girls on this earth. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for being with us in the storms. How many people in here are in a storm right now, or you've been in one this year, or you fear you're about to go through one? Will you raise your hand? Nobody's looking around. I just want to see. I didn't think I was the only one. Thank you that you're with us through our storms. And Lord, I say thank you that your timing is always perfect in the way that you help us and you guide our steps. Thank you for helping me with my storm. And I pray this in your name. Amen.